Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about my episode 1 review of Hard Knocks training camp with the Oakland Raiders. Now, before we get into that, let me remind all of you that recently, I have started my Patreon. If you haven't checked that out, go. The link is in the description. But we're talking about the Oakland Raiders either way. As every season progresses and we get to this early August and mid-August kind of stage, Hard Knocks is always there to usher us into the new regular season. And this year we're going to be going over with the Oakland Raiders. Now, specifically, the Oakland Raiders bring up many questions. Number one obviously has to do with Jon Gruden and what he did with the organization last year. So on today's episode, I'm going to be going over the episode, but then also kind of giving you my thoughts on the organization itself, and giving you the fantasy implications. As you all know, I generally talk fantasy football. So to begin, right, let's talk about what exactly we should expect from the Raiders. This episode started out hot and heavy. It came out with Jon Gruden having a pretty inspirational speech, to be honest, and saying things like, you can lead the league in effort because it requires no talent. And stuff like that, obviously, especially for me, that fires me up, right? But let's be honest here. The Raiders are coming off of a 4-12 season in which they traded away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. Sure, they got themselves some first-round picks, but the scrutiny that surrounds Jon Gruden and this entire organization, it's just going to continue until he can, present some results for what he did to this organization, really just tearing it apart in order to just gather up some first-round picks. If those first-round picks don't pretty much pan out in the next couple of years, and if they can't transition to get W's, going to Vegas next year, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for the Raiders. Obviously, those 3 first-round picks that they had this season, one from the Bears, one from the Cowboys, and one they personally had, they went out, they drafted some pretty good players, right? Obviously, they have to be difference makers. Guys like Farrell, defensive end from Clemson. They got Josh Jacobs from Alabama, the running back. And then the guy that pretty much, in my opinion, was the entire star of this specific episode, which was Jonathan Abram, the safety from Mississippi State. The guy was everywhere. Literally, the guy ran the entire episode. He had this sense of, confidence that he exuded him, and really, the cameras, they couldn't stop following him. He was entertaining, all in all. But there were a couple tidbits here and there with Abram where, man, the dude was hitting people at practice full speed ahead, with shorts on, right? And typically when you're doing walkthroughs, you don't want to get lit up by a safety running straight at you full speed. But hey, Jon Gruden went up to him. The head coach had to have a talk with him. And guess what? Even then, Abram he's a rookie. He's a first rounder, sure. All in all, he's a first rounder. He was the last first round selection that they made in 2019. Yet he was still giving some lip to Gruden. It was like playful, but in my opinion, just looking at that from the outside looking in, man, Gruden's gotta tighten up his leash here, maybe, and start whipping these players into shape. Because I don't know, as a head coach in the NFL, when your players are kind of jabbing back like that, saying you can't cut me and stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, to be honest, it's playful and fun, but like when you go up to a player and say, hey, maybe don't knock somebody on their ass during walkthroughs, hopefully they'd listen, but he was coming back at him a little bit. Other than that, the episode started off with, obviously, Derek Carr, the face of the franchise as of right now, and then Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is the talk of the town for Oakland, and to be honest, he should be. Having the number 1 wide receiver on your team, I guess in the NFL as of right now, it's incredible, right? The thing is, obviously, it sucks for Steelers fans that Antonio Brown just didn't want to play for Pittsburgh anymore, and obviously, the frustration rose to the point where, we're willing to trade him for literally nothing. They traded him away for a 3rd-round pick. The Steelers still have to pay his contract this coming season, so that's a bit of a bummer. But the couple things that stood out to me for majority of this episode, Antonio Brown was injured, and they mentioned it multiple times. He's dealing with blisters on his feet. It's making it difficult for him to cut. It's making it difficult for him to run. The information actually came out earlier today before the episode aired that actually, in fact, multiple sources actually reported this, that Antonio Brown is not dealing with specific blisters, but in fact, due to obviously players in the NFL, any professional athlete, they all go to cryotherapy, which is basically like you walk into a room that's, I don't know, I guess 0 degrees for about 2 minutes, bada boom, you walk out. It's like you went through an ice bath, but you did it pretty quickly, right? It's supposed to help. Okay, I'm not a doctor. Either way, according to these sources, Antonio Brown wasn't wearing the correct footwear. So instead of it actually being the blisters that they were mentioning, his feet are somewhat frostbit. He has frostbite on some of his, some parts of his feet, and that's what's making it difficult for him to run, and that's what's hurting him. He actually went and saw a foot specialist yesterday. So the information as of right now, even though they weren't really trying to make it public, it did end up surfacing. So that's the specific case. Now, for those of you who are thinking, Andrew, okay, you're the fantasy guy around here. What's your thoughts on that? Well, it's definitely worrisome when the best wide receiver in the NFL has to deal with an injury such as that, which is it's comical in my opinion. I think frostbite, really, from cryotherapy, that's ridiculous. Like, how can you make that mistake? I think it's ridiculous, but if it continues to bug him and he isn't practicing in the next couple weeks, it's going to obviously plummet his fantasy stock, and it's going to hurt the Raiders because they need a number one wide receiver. What are you going to have? You're going to throw the ball to Tyrell Williams 100 times this year? You could, but that's not going to win you games. You need AB to be that difference maker. Like they said in the episode, when AB's on the field, he raises everyone's, he raises the juice. He brings a level of confidence and energy to the offense, the defense, that helps this Oakland Raiders team. And they need that 100%. And they got to make sure that he's healthy, especially considering he is really the biggest name on that offense. And he's going to try to have to carry this team going into 2019. A couple of the other things that kind of stood out to me throughout this episode. Obviously, they have their funny jokes here and there. They introduced us a couple players. One of the players they decided to introduce us to was this defensive tackle who was on Last Chance University. Personally, I don't watch that. I think it's on Netflix. I don't have any interest in watching that. But I guess he was, one of the players that, I don't know, kind of embarrassed himself on that show. No big deal. He had an opportunity to come in and try to make an NFL roster, which is absolutely fantastic, and I applaud him for doing so. But the issue was, similar to every Hard Knocks season premiere that has been for the last, 5 years, somebody gets cut. And he was the unlucky one. Here's my thought process, right? Obviously, he said he had an Achilles injury, and that was bugging him, and he couldn't go. But to be honest, if you're an undrafted free agent rookie, and you have been given the opportunity to make a team that, in my opinion, has been struggling at the defensive side of the ball, specifically defensive line-wise, I'm going to play injured. I don't care. Why would you shorten your opportunity? Yes, I understand you're in pain. That's fine. Sometimes you have to suck it up in order to get something better, right? You got to sacrifice a little bit. You got to go through the pain in order to get what you want. And if maybe the passion's not there, you don't want to be on the Raiders enough, then I understand. But otherwise, I just, it's tough for me to think that he should have sat out. I don't like that decision. If I was him, I would have played through it as much as I possibly could until my Achilles blew out. But all in all, other than that, let's think about some other things that kind of rose or stood out to me at least. Obviously, they have their little montages and stuff like that. That's enjoyable. Listen, I mean, like Hard Knocks, it gets you in the football mood, right? The preseason starts on Thursday. So from here on out, obviously, this is the introduction to the Oakland Raiders. They showed you a couple names in order to familiarize yourself with them. But for those of us who are familiar with, football in general, all in all, they show the montages, they show the aerial shots, the cinematography is great. They're out there practicing in Napa Valley in California. It's hot as heck out here. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. But outside of that kind of stuff, and them clowning around here and there, a couple of things that kind of stood out to me football-wise. When John Gruden and Derek Carr were talking to each other, I couldn't help but tell that they have no legitimate relationship within one another except for a business relationship. That's all they have. They're coach and player. there is no friendliness. Like, even when they were talking to each other, I was thinking to myself, okay, Derek Carr has been in the league. This is his 6th season. Okay, John Gruden's been coaching for God knows how many years. I understand he retired, sure, but he's been around football for a very long time. There is no relationship there. Even with a season under their belt together, like, just their conversation that they had just came off to me like a little bit fake. Like, Gruden was telling them, like, yeah, as long as everybody's doing their job, blah blah. It's like, yeah, we know that, coach. I've been playing for you for a year. You're talking to me like I'm a freshman in high school. Like, I'm the starting quarterback of this team. Like, I don't know. It came off to me like weird. I don't know if I'm the only one. Tell me in the comment section. Am I the only one that kind of thought that was a little bit strange? It just rubbed me the wrong way for a second. I just feel like Gruden just doesn't have that kind of relationship with his quarterback. Not to say that you need to have one, but a guy like Jared Goff and Sean McVay, I can guarantee you they have a better relationship. They talk, they communicate. He can ask. Okay, actually, here it is. This is the reason why it bothered me. John Gruden literally asked him, do you like this offense? Do you like playing in this offense? What kind of question is that? Like, what do you mean, do you like this offense? You're the head coach. The offensive coordinator you hired. What do you mean, do you like this offense? As the starting quarterback, am I going to tell you that, nah, you know what, I think we need to change things? Sure, maybe if I had a better relationship with you and I was, if I was comfortable enough to go to your office and be like, hey, some things need to change. But why would you ask him, do you like this offense? As if he has a say in it? It rubbed me completely the wrong way. I don't know, man. John Gruden's got a lot to prove to me. He really does. Going into the 2019 season, I mean, the Oakland Raiders, their season starts off pretty tough. I mean, I can just look at me. All right, their schedule to begin the season, they got to play Denver, Kansas City, Minnesota, Indianapolis, and Chicago. And then they get a bye week. Okay, thinking about those 5 games, to be honest, if they win one of them, if they beat Denver in week 1, and then obviously you're losing to Kansas City, Minnesota, Indianapolis, and Chicago. That's a fact. So you're starting 1-4, excuse me. You're going to hit the bye week, and coming out of the bye week, you're going to have 2 away games at Green Bay and at Houston. To be honest, I don't see an Oakland Raiders team outside of being 1-6 in the beginning of the season, in the first 7 weeks. And then after that, whatever, doesn't matter. They're going to have to make a big jump. It's going to have to start, obviously, from putting points up on the board, and then it's got to be the defense. They've brought in a couple guys. Vontaze Burfict is another one of these leaders that's going to have to come in. They have Whitehead in the middle linebacker position. I think he's been playing. Was he with the Raiders last year, or was he with the Lions? I can't honestly remember defensively, but that's what happens when you focus so much on fantasy football. But either way, outside of that, I'm trying to think of any other things that kind of stood out to me in terms of this episode. Really, just there wasn't much. A lot of it was just introducing players. Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought at times it's boring because it's just like, they were talking to Guy Fieri on the sideline. They were talking to G-Eazy, the rapper. Okay, great. All right, we have to take time out of our day. But actually, that brings up a point really quickly because Guy Fieri was talking to the offensive lineman because he wanted to feed them. I want to talk about the offensive line of this team. I'm not kidding. This offensive line is actually really going to be better this coming season. Sure, they lost Kelechi Osemele. They traded him away to the Jets. But you still have Rodney Hudson. You have Gabe Jackson. They brought in Richie Incognito, who I know, is going to be a good participant. I mean, he's a great offensive lineman. I don't care what you want to say about him off the field, but when we're talking about on the field, the guy is a hell of a player, plain and simple. And obviously, he'll be missing the first 2 games of the season due to suspension. They drafted their left tackle last year. They brought in Trent Brown to play the right tackle position, who was formerly the left tackle of the New England Patriots. This offensive line set. If you can just plug away and let Josh Jacobs take care of this team, they can get somewhere. But again, reading that schedule, it's going to be tough, without a doubt in my mind. So, what's surprising enough, for all the years that I've watched Hard Knocks, usually they like to introduce younger players. They sure did this time, right? They introduced us to Jonathan Abram, and he was fun. He was funny. He pretty much carried the entire first episode. But outside of him, they really didn't introduce anybody. The only other guy they cut. So really, give me your playbook. Give me the iPad. Bada boom, you're done. There really weren't any young players that typically we follow, because a lot of Hard Knocks has to do with the narrative of following a player that's trying to make a team. And how he works with the coach, and how the offense is and the defense, and blah blah blah, and whether you can step up during these next couple preseason games in order to secure yourself a job, or perhaps a practice squad job. So as of right now, they haven't really established anything in that case. A lot of it really had to do with Antonio Brown, and I think as of right now, that's concerning, of course. But the Raiders, I don't know, man. The Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders. So for those of you out in Oakland, enjoy it. And then next year you can drive out to Vegas and have a nice weekend. Outside of that, just an okay episode. Nothing too big deal. Maybe perhaps the idea of Hard Knocks is kind of worn off on me. But to be honest, I'm excited. Football season's just around the corner, and that's exactly what we're waiting for. So until then, we're just going to continue to grind here and try to absorb as much content as we possibly can. I was watching the scrimmage between the Chargers and the Rams from last week. That was fun. I want to see some joint practice. I want to see some bickering. I want to see some fights. I want to see some hard hitting. That's what I want to see. I want to see players compete, right? I want to see some Oklahoma drills. I want to see some competition. I want to get fired up. I want to get ready for the season. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's my review on the episode. I think all in all, the training camp of the Raiders, it's an interesting team. I think going into the season, obviously this is one of the teams that has the most question marks surrounding it, outside of teams that have holdouts like Ezekiel Elliott. But definitely, I think the Oakland Raiders are a fun team to follow. I know for a fact that John Gruden has said he's not too happy about having the HBO cameras everywhere. But hey, you know what? This makes it exciting for us, for those of us who are fans. Football, Raiders, doesn't matter. It's enjoyable. So until next time, if you like this video, go down, click the like button. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Typically, we don't do reviews like this very often, but we are talking fantasy football all the time. So if you're interested in that kind of a content and you're new to the channel, go down, click that subscribe button, and watch away. So thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, which will be next week for episode 2 review, I'll see you guys. So peace.